Hey guys, I don't know if this is actually going live or not. Give me a second to check. Can't really tell. Okay, cool. It is live. So I wasn't actually planning on doing a live stream, but this is just coming through so strongly that I really wanted to share it with you guys today. But it's something that I have talked about throughout the years. I think throughout the last 3.5 years, that I've been online, I've spoken about this in different ways, but the reason I'm sharing it with you guys today, because this is probably the lesson that I've had the hardest time with learning. And I know that a lot of my clients have had the same. And I know that a lot of, especially spiritual entrepreneurs and women in general, have struggles around really claiming what we desire and what we won't tolerate and having really, really healthy boundaries. And the thing that I've learned is it is not always talked about, but it's actually one of the biggest keys to really being highly successful in what you do. Because first of all, let me give you guys a little bit of a different take on why you would set up, boundaries of what you will and you won't tolerate in your business, and how that could actually help you be a lot more successful, even though it's pretty uncomfortable to do. I know that for myself, as a people pleaser, when I first came online and brought my business from the in-person coaching space to the online space, I loved helping people and I really didn't have a lot of boundaries. And so I was, really giving a ton of my time, not always in areas that, with people who were going to be ideal clients. And then I started to really shift that. And, it was, with the help of my coaches and everything too, but it's actually been a process. And I've noticed that recently my boundaries, even, though sometimes it's still uncomfortable to really say, hey, this is not something. I'm going to just share a little story with you guys. So basically, a woman reached out and was asking a lot of questions about, working with me. And she mentioned that she was, kind of coach shopping, and it just didn't feel like she was really in that space where I could help her the most, or that, she was really ready to go all in and have, full business success. And there was probably a time where I'd be like, I wouldn't have said anything. But now, what Sherry and I both do actually in this case is, if it's not a hell yes to work with us, then it's not, it's a no. It is an absolute no. So that's a big, big shift from who I used to be 3 years ago. And those are the type of things that I've noticed leave so much more space. I don't really, I don't waste my time on people who aren't actually ideal clients, or that I'm not in love with and want to work with, and that want to work with me. So, but what I see even with a lot of people who have reached low six figures in their business, but they're, really burning out, is they don't necessarily have those type of boundaries yet. And it's exhausting. So if you notice that, maybe you're spending a lot of time on calls or even on Messenger, if you do a lot of Messenger sales like I do, with people who aren't really an ideal fit, and you kind of know it from the beginning, and you just keep going, and it's just you don't say that clear. It actually can be said with love too. Hey, it just doesn't feel like a fit. But if you're not able to say what's not for you or what you don't want, you can't actually have what you do want. So that's the key. The key is, it's just two parts to it, is you need to get super, super clear. And you guys can ask questions too. About anything as you go along, and I'll answer them. But you want to get super, super clear about what you do want. So, if you have some clients you've really loved and some that weren't ideal, so you start to really get clear on, my soulmate clients are decisive, they take action, they're, in the space of, wanting to, this is for me, so for myself, like, you can obviously fill in it with your blanks with whatever your niche is. But for myself, my clients, they've already, had some traction in their business. They're amazing at what they do. A lot of times they are just really stuck around certain little areas of their business where they're misaligned, but they have an amazing gift that needs to be out there in the world. And they are decisive. They're the type of people who can take action, because I've noticed that the type of people who can't decide or don't believe in themselves enough to make decisions are very rarely successful as entrepreneurs. So I know certain traits that, that I've cultivated myself that I really call in my ideal clients too. So notice, and I also learned over the years, things that I, didn't like in myself that I really worked on changing because they weren't serving me. When I changed them in myself, those no longer were, actually showing up in people as much too. So that's the other area to consider. But get super clear. You need to get really super clear about what it is you want, what it is that, you can't tolerate. So in my case, people who are really wishy-washy, those who, really are more of the dreamer type that don't take any action at all, or, they just, here's another one, actually. This is like one of my favorites. Anyone who comes in and tells me that why they haven't had a certain level of success has to do with everyone but them, that to me is a big warning sign. So anyone who's still in that consciousness where they think that others are responsible for their failure, I just put a little quote that I made up, I guess, about it too. I was thinking about that. Those same people are never going to take responsibility for their own success either. Because if you think that your failure is outside of you, you're also going to think your success is outside of you, and none of that is actually a space of empowerment where you can create anything. So, those things, if, I see that come up in any type of conversation, then I know, this person is not a perfect fit. So you really need to figure out what are the signs that somebody is a really aligned fit. So then everything you write will say, hey, if this is you, this is, I can really help you. And if someone's not a fit, just let them know, really have it out there that, if you're this type of person who doesn't really want it that bad, or, really hates taking action, or tends to be more of a dreamer than a doer, then it's not, it's not a fit. So I think that when you get really clear and you're willing to state what you will and you won't stand for and tolerate in your business, all of a sudden life gets easier. Hey, Vanu. Hi, Nanda. Just showing me you guys are on. Katrina, you too. Cool. So, the thing is, once you get there, it's in my own experience, it was really hard. It was hard for me to take that firm stand. I'm like, oh, are people going to get mad at me? And sometimes still, I'll notice that there's like a little fear of just saying the truth. I'm like, well, this just doesn't feel right. And it's hard, right? And at least for me, I know that I was never taught to just be, I'm pretty blunt, but I wasn't taught to be that way. I was taught to be, my mom always wished I would, be a little bit more, I don't know, what's the word, politically correct maybe. And so when I'm trying to just be, real and honest, sometimes I will feel like, oh, this is pretty straightforward. But I've noticed afterwards, it always leads to something better. You have to say no to some things for you to be able to say yes to other things that are aligned. So if you're in a space where it's like you're just taking all the clients, or because you aren't full in your business, here's another thing. Even if you don't have the results you want yet, you have to start running your business like the person who already has them. So just because you haven't had, you don't have a full practice yet, or a full, group programs or whatever it is you're looking to create next, doesn't mean that you just want to have unclear or boundaries that actually don't serve you best. If you show up as, say you're trying to create this year $500,000 a year or something like that, or let's go a little lower. Let's just say you're trying to create a $200,000 a year, and last year you only made $50,000 or something. It's totally doable, right? Definitely with the right support. But in order to have that, you have to start showing up as the person who already has that. So that person, who do they be each day? Who are they being? When you're speaking, what is your messaging talking to? You have to really embody that first. That's how manifesting, it's really where a lot of people get really stuck, is because they're still that $50,000 a year person, just hoping that it can shift outside in, but it has to shift. Oh, and I'm going to read that comment in a sec, Katrina, and answer any questions, but it has to shift on the inside first, where you see yourself as that person already, because everything once started as a concept. Elon Musk's cars and all, everything was once just an idea. The more you can believe in your idea, and it doesn't matter if anyone else believes it, honestly, it's really the more that you can embody it, it has no choice but to manifest. So for you to become a $50,000 a year person to a 200 plus person, you're going to have different boundaries. You're going to have to show up differently. Things that you don't feel are serving you, or that are time drains, you want to let those go. And even if, so here's the other thing. I've heard of people who have like a nightmare client. I think that's the best thing that could ever happen, is to have a client that really isn't aligned, because it gives you an opportunity to, first of all, see what you don't want, and to know more what you do want, and to say, bye. I haven't actually had a situation where I've had to really fire a client like that, but I've known and here's the deal, if I ever had that, I would. And it's because you have to be willing to take a stand. Even if you don't have the amount of money that you desire, and you have a client that's paying you, if they aren't treating you well, or there's something that's, you've attracted in due to some, something you haven't resolved, that is a time for you to say, hey, like, this isn't working. You can try to set clear boundaries with them and shift it. But if it doesn't, you have to let people go. So I think that's another space that a lot of really heart-centered entrepreneurs get stuck. They feel like, oh, I couldn't fire a client, or you end up trying to make something work that isn't aligned, and that stops you from that next level of evolution. It holds your energy back from a higher vibration, and then you don't get to create what you want. So I think it's the reason I'm talking about this today is I had this download this morning that this is actually for how many percent? Let me see. At least 75% of spiritual or heart-centered entrepreneurs, a main factor that holds them back from the amount of unlimited success that they desire. And it definitely was, and still can be, it's something I'm always working on, but it's an area that I struggled a lot in, and that I know there is so much more possible for you when you do just say, hey, I don't tolerate this. This is what I'm calling in, and not wavering, really telling the universe, hey, this is what I'm about now. This is who I am as of now, not who I was, 10 years ago, last week, whatever it is, right? So that's kind of just the message I wanted to share. And let me know, guys, if this resonated. Katrina says, I just talked about this. When you don't say what you feel at the time or something, or if it isn't alignment, it leads to sadness and depression. You go, right. So if you think about it, I mean, even this is something that, this is like, I notice it in my family of origin. It's really common in society, and some men too, right? Is people will kind of just not say anything at the time of, and then they kind of act passive aggressive or something like that. None of that really works. You have to address it at the time of. You have to take the action. If you sit around just hoping things will change, you will start to feel frustrated or depressed or sad, or worse, you could end up sick or something like that as well. Because if something's not in alignment and you're tolerating things in your life, that does not lead to more fulfillment. That does not lead to success. That does not lead to joy, which is really what life's about. Oh, thank you. Meg said powerful reminders. Katrina says she's stuck like that. So do any of you guys have any other questions around this? Or anything about boundaries or energy or how to call in higher levels of clients? Oh, wait a second, because I know there is a... Oh, Kimberly Ann. All right, Kimberly. So she says, or sometimes coaches think they have a reason to fire someone, like a tangible thing. If it feels wrong or off, that's your reason. Just trust your gut and say goodbye. I'm actually going to take this a step further, Kimberly. Usually, like, you should, here's the deal. If it's just a gut instinct, I would actually say that you probably could have had it earlier too. So you want to start also trusting your intuition. If there's something that you're like, some stuff feels right, but some of it feels wrong before you even take on the client, that's an even better space. But I'm not sure on that, because if there's no reason and the person's fine, it could be some of your own blocks. I'd have to hear more about the situation. I wouldn't just fire someone if they're behaving perfectly well and they're getting results with you, and it could be something that's coming up in you. So it just depends. I would say have a reason to fire someone because you did go ahead and actually take that client on. So there is a sense of responsibility if they're showing up and 100% doing what they're supposed to do, and there's nothing that you can identify in any way that they've done wrong. I think that if it's intuitively just not a fit or a connection, that's something you probably would have gotten prior to hiring them. So hopefully that's helpful. You can let me know how that resonates. Yes, Meg. So she says she likes the reminder of telling the universe exactly who you are being. Yes, you make a claim, right? We made up who we were. We just didn't do it consciously when we were a child. And it was based on, social influences, our familial influences, all that kind of stuff, right? So really, it's one thing that Sherry and I really talk about in a lot of our programs, but you are creating a new self. When you're asking for a different reality in your life, you are reinventing yourself, so your behaviors will change, and you can show up as the person who already has it and become that. And basically then you actually call into you the things that you do desire. And the actions, obviously you take the right actions, but you have the ideas that come into you too about, this is how I need to show up. The thing that sometimes stops people with it is some of the ideas you may get when you're really embodying a new level of yourself are a little scary, right? Because they're going to be at a different level than you've been at before. So it's also being willing to trust. And so say it's, oh my gosh, I'm meant to go public speak, and you get this opportunity. Some people will stay playing small and say, oh no, I don't want to do that. But even if you're really afraid, it's saying yes to the things that are going to pull you forward. Because if you've never done something before, it's always a little scary, but it doesn't mean you're not going to be absolutely amazing at it. At one time, none of us had even walked before in this lifetime. And look at us now, Oh, it's a crazy person. Okay, so that's what I was running. So if someone is, so she's, this is back to Kimberly. She was talking about you don't need to have a reason, but a crazy person is a reason. So if somebody's behaving crazy, you just check in and you can even say, like, let them know what the behaviors are. But sometimes it's just if they're acting, obviously that's more than enough reason to let go of someone if they're behaving crazy towards you. And you probably could figure out in the beginning. I still feel like, you're an intuitive person, Kimberly. So sometimes, you might say yes to someone because some things are right, but there's like that intuitive feeling in the beginning. Just say no then. It's even easier. It took me a while to get to that point. I work with a ton of really amazing soulmate clients, and I had to really get clear to get to that space. Because I had, a couple of clients that were definitely not aligned, and that's what really taught me, here's what I need to be saying, here's who I need to be showing up as. Actually, when I went back, I did know there was some stuff beforehand, all right, so she was working for someone else at the time. Oh, geez. Well, that's a lot different. So that's why being your own boss, she said, obviously if you're working, I don't know, in a job or something, it's different. But when you work for yourself, that's the coolest thing is you get to choose. Yeah, when you're first starting out, you take on yeah. I mean, you don't have to, though. So here's the deal, guys. Even if you're first starting out, you do not have to take on every client. But you can also be a little easier on yourself. You may not know exactly what you're looking for in a client when you're newer. So you want to be a little bit more flexible early on. But the more clients you have, the clearer you're going to be about what really, really works for you. And even when you're newer, if you have some really big warning signs in a person, you don't have to take it. I really suggest just, and here's the thing. If you're really afraid of having new clients, you might be blocking it and finding something wrong in everyone. But if you're more like me and you're like, okay, I'll just take anyone, be a little bit more, just a little choosier. Just really ask yourself, is this person at least 75% aligned as far as I can tell, being where I'm at? Does that help? Oh, and Meg, I missed you. Sorry. It says, yes, when I feel that fear, it's been a direction. It's probably the direction I need to go. A lot of times, yes. A lot of times you want to move towards something that you're afraid of, but that has, if you're thinking of it, like if you're thinking, I need to speak or I need to start doing videos, and, it feels like it would be right for me, but you're totally afraid because you've never done it. I was in that position at one point. Do them, If it's something that just doesn't feel aligned to you, but someone suggested it, I say, there's no one way to create success. But certain things you're going to be highly afraid of because you haven't done them yet, but they're going to be in your highest good. And some things you just won't resonate with, and you don't have to do that. Kimberly says, yeah, I agree. It's very clarifying to be in that situation to know what you don't want. Yeah. I mean, honestly, everything is always working out for you good. So if you do get a client like that, you can really investigate, like, what was it about it that, I don't want it anymore, and what do I want instead? Katrina says, because choosing the wrong client can play games with your thoughts on yourself. It can, and it doesn't have to. So, it depends on how it could, a lot of times it can definitely, if you allow it to affect your confidence. And here's the deal, when anything goes wrong in any relationship, the first place I check, and what I've learned to do is I'm always somewhat responsible. So you want to go inside first and say, what am I contributing to this? Like, what could I shift so that this could, have a better outcome? And sometimes you can even shift the relationship, but sometimes it really was, that a certain trigger or weakness in you attracted that, and that is the thing that you can shift. So no matter what, there's always a lesson to be learned in every experience. And whenever you see everything as an opportunity, which honestly in life, that's how I see everything. And it's a pretty empowering way to look at it. If everything is always working out for your good, how is this serving me now? Even if it doesn't look like it. So that's, really how I like to approach it first. And then you make the decision of, how do I want to handle this? Like, how do I want to move forward to release that relationship, or if it's almost over, just to, be really clear in the future. There's always an aligned decision that can come from there. And Meg says, definitely, alignment and fear are completely different and distinct feelings. Great reminder. Absolutely. You can still have something that's very aligned and you're afraid of it, and you can be something that you're not afraid of at all, and people are telling you to do, and it just doesn't feel right, and it's just not aligned for you. All right, guys, anything else on this? I'll give you a second because of the long-term delay. See if did I miss anything? Nope. I'll give you like 2 more seconds. Well, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and, you can ask me any questions about it. Oh, and Meg, she's doing our Ultimate Wealth Breakthrough. That program is amazing. I'm so glad you love it. It's going to change everything for you. And I might come on for a few minutes to just do some fun, Q&A, psychic biz coaching if I have some time before I go out with my friend. I'm going to text her, but I'll be back or not. And if you're watching the replay, you're welcome, Benu. Just ask me any questions on the thread in here and I'll answer them for you. Love you all. Have a great weekend.